So hello everybody, welcome back to Law Hero. My name is Jen and I make videos about the law. So today we're going to look at one of my favourite topics, which is legal education. I feel very heavily invested in the topic of legal education. Indeed, I would say it is my favourite topic in the world to speak about. Not only FE1s, QLTT, King's Inns, undergraduate law exams, PPC1, PPC2 and then professional diplomas, and then taking bar exams in other countries. I just have an interest in all these things, and I thought that I would go back and do some more education myself. Therefore, next year I will start a professional doctorate in law, and it is on this subject of legal education because it is my passion. Specifically in my doctorate, I want to address the gap between undergraduate academic law studies and practical lawyer-like skills for barristers and solicitors, because my fundamental belief that is in the Republic of Ireland we do not have a functional legal education system. For example, I have seen in Germany where there's been a lot of, we'll say, customer experience or, student experience has really been thought about, and also the wider impact of legal education on the public. And that is why I think that the system needs to be overhauled, and that, for example, the litigation that was taken around the FE1s was quite reactive and almost patching up the system rather than taking a step back and addressing the system for the good of the students coming through, but also for the public, which is why we have lawyers. It's for the administration of justice. I digress. Today we're going to be talking about legal education in Ireland. People ask me all the time why I get so riled up about this, and I'm going to give you all a bit of a backstory, because I think, like, for example, when I posted on LinkedIn there, and you'll all have seen from my Instagram, I got very riled up about it, that the LSRA are currently doing a survey on economic barriers to the profession, and so that diversity will increase. And basically they've gone out and they've surveyed solicitors under 7 years, barristers under 7 years, PPC 1 and 2 students, apprenticeship barristers and undergraduate law students. My beef with that survey was that it's missing the fundamental point, which is that access to education is the very first rung of the ladder when it comes to legal education. Legal education, in my opinion, and this is factually true, is a subcategory of a broader education. Now, somebody on LinkedIn made the point that you don't necessarily need a law degree to become a lawyer, and that is true. However, we look at the majority when it comes to like a pragmatic approach, and yes, what he is saying is true. Technically, you don't have to have any degree at all. You could go and do the preliminary examination, and then you could do the FE1s, you could get through that way. That's fine. It's just that is not the path that most people take. And also, you are very unlikely to get a traineeship in a big law firm if that is the path you have come through. So I suppose from my perspective, I'm looking at the majority. The majority of people do a law degree, usually at one of the leading universities in Ireland, and then sit the FE1s, because that is the trajectory, as in doing law. This is not necessarily means you're going to be a good solicitor, of course. However, having done law as an undergraduate gives you a distinct advantage in the FE1s, and also it sets you up. And it's an unpopular opinion, and I also have people come to me who have done commerce, people who come to me who've done politics, okay? And law firms love these people because they think they have a different perspective. They will take a few of them, but the majority of the people they take will have done a law degree at undergraduate. So that is why I am speaking as regards the majority. Of course there are nuances, but I am not addressing those nuances. My argument, first and foremost, is that law as a major, I don't care what your minor is, mine was German, law as a major should be a prerequisite to becoming a legal practitioner. That is my theory. That is not the case as stands. A lot of people do arts, a lot of people do business, accounting, the list goes on and on. Why? Next question is, why do I think that? I think that because, in my opinion, law should be treated as a science that is first and foremost theoretical and then is built upon, so like you learn the theory before you do the experiment, just like a scientist. If I had a Gen Utopia, a Law Hero Utopia, you would study the fundamentals, the basics of law at undergraduate level. You would do some practical subjects towards the end of your degree. There would be no masters unless you wanted to specialize in some area of law, and you knew that from an early stage. But early on, and indeed straight after the undergraduate degree, we would have people go on the PPC 1 and then go into training. So it would be, I would scrap the FE ones altogether. I would have law degree, PPC 1, 2 years on the job, PPC 2, done. That's what I would have in my dream world. That would be my legal education system. But that's not the case here. And then as a prerequisite to getting into that degree in law, there should be mass funding opportunities, because the administration of justice is so important in the rule of law and therefore democracy. So because democracy is such an important part of the running of a state, I believe state operators like the LSRA should direct funds towards diverse backgrounds in order to get them on the law degree. And that is why I had beef with the LSRA survey. I don't think they thought through the very, very start, which is that some people drop out. So you should be getting them at TY. Some people don't even do the leaving cert, even though at TY stage they could be somehow engaged on legal projects and somehow could become a great lawyer because of their background, because of their perspective. I think we should be getting people that young. I know this because I myself taught TY students on the street law project. I taught in Palmerstown, Scoil Iselda, it's called, in Palmerstown, Dublin. It would be considered a disadvantaged school in the classifications of school in Dublin. And at that very stage, when we tested those people who were in the TY class, their knowledge of law was vast. They understood a lot of how society functions from their own personal experiences, certainly the kind of experiences I wasn't having at 16 years of age. And those are the kind of people, with a mix of people like me who weren't exposed to it and whatever, had an upbringing that wasn't exposed to violence or bonfires or drugs, that kind of stuff. You need a mixture of people from these different backgrounds to come into the profession because of their different perspectives. That is my opinion, and it should start very, very early on, and there should be some sort of system to get people into third level, and that should, the legal education, I think, should start in secondary schools. Okay, so that was a very, very long, nearly 9 minutes of me talking about my utopia. Let's look at what has happened up until now. Let's look at the history. So most solicitors and barristers who qualified in the last 40 years hold a law degree. This was not always the case, and until the 1960s, the state of law schools in Ireland was less than satisfactory. It was only after the 60s that the universities increased the number of full-time lecturers to a level that was capable of offering a law degree. Up to that time, many of university law lecturers were also practitioners who divided their time between university and courts. So on that fact alone, the fact that lawyers were teaching law, that means that at some stage, somebody thought it was wise that a practitioner teach a law student. I think it's just an interesting point to note, because now it's gone completely in the opposite way. Obviously, lecturers are usually postdoc researchers who are on a path to becoming professors and then ultimately dean of law. They're on a completely different trajectory, and they've become so numb to practice that you wonder, what is the point? What is the point of law in theory? There is really no law in theory if it's not being practiced. That's my opinion. I'm not saying we don't need researchers. Of course we need the law to be researched. But I'm saying that without a practical element, you cannot, as a scientist, test your theory. Because of the state of law schools, many lawyers held general universities degrees such as arts, followed by the training in the Law Society or King's Inns. I think I've mentioned this before. Whether this was an advantage or a disadvantage is a matter of debate, as I've already said, but it is the case that many important decisions given by judges in recent years were delivered by persons whose university education did not involve a law degree. And the question is that right or wrong? This is the long-standing debate which we've had in Irish legal education. So we're going to come back again to the 1990 Fair Trade Commission report. So the report noted that the Law Society of Ireland and the King's Inns have kept a discreet distance from the universities, basically calling themselves professional courses, and that's how they keep their distance. The FTC considered that knowledge of the basic or core elements of law was essential for a person to progress to the vocational or professional stage of legal education, which means practical. While a 3 or 4 year law degree was regarded by the FTC as the best indicator of academic competence, it was also accepted that a similar qualification to the King's Inn diploma should be acceptable, particularly as this would ensure a number of persons from a non-legal academic background would continue to be attracted to the profession. They considered that a diploma route might help widen the socioeconomic background of entrance to the profession. They were also of the view that entry to the profession might be conditional on attaining a certain level of performance in the degree or diploma. So basically the King's Inn diploma is 2 years. You don't need to have a background in law. And similarly with the FE1s, you don't need to have a background in law. You can do the preliminary examination if you don't have a level 8 degree, or if you do have a level 8 degree, you can just go straight through to the FE1. So they set up a committee on legal education and training on the recommendation of the FTC to review all elements of legal education. They added that this might become an institute of legal education, independent of the law societies, the King's Inns and the universities, but would make use of their premises. The institute would arrange the vocational training of solicitors and barristers. By the way, they already have this in Northern Ireland. So the advisory committee was established in '93, but not by the Minister for Justice like they had suggested. Rather, the Law Society, King's Inns, universities and other third-level institutions involved in legal education came together on a voluntary basis to examine legal education. It was led by Justice Ronan Keane, who became Chief Justice in 2000. It did not agree with the recommendation, and it concluded that everyone should continue with their respective roles. However, it did make some recommendations concerning how professional legal education could be developed. That was basically nothing happened. In 2006, the Competition Authority made the report, and they noticed that the provision of education to trainee barristers capped at the level of capacity the King's Inn has for places on its barrister law qualification course. So the provision of legal education is capped, that's what we're trying to say. It recommended that the role of the Law Society and King's Inn in setting standard provision for education and entry to both branches be removed and be transferred to an independent regulatory body. It also recommended the provision of legal education by either institution or any other institution wishing to provide legal training to solicitors and barristers should be subject to approval to an independent body. It criticised the monopoly on provisions of legal education by the Law Society and King's Inn, and concluded the absence of competition removed an incentive to keep costs down, and this could lead to inefficiency. and that a monopoly reduced the incentive to be innovative, which was not in the best interests of society. And this is the point I was harping on about on my Instagram account the other day. If I am the Law Society, and if I am the King's Inns, and if I have no competition, what incentive is there for me to reduce my fees when there is great demand to become a solicitor and a barrister? There is demand for legal services, and the supply is not running out. So it's perfect economic environment for them to operate in without any competition. Now obviously we have the LSRA, and now we see that the LSRA are starting to put their foot down. So yeah, that became a rather long video on legal education in Ireland. Watch this space. I have some exciting news coming up later this year about how I intend with some other people to try and somehow change or augment or supplement or add to the level of legal education in Ireland and the gap between university and practical education. I'm trying my best. It's difficult though to get people to adhere to it because, like Burnham McCutcheon have said, there's a discrete distance and it's not up to Law Hero here to try and bridge that gap. But I think that somebody needs to say something somewhere, and I guess that has to be me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you have any other suggestions. That ends the Back to Basics series. I am probably going to do more practical stuff from now on, like, you know, how to draft stuff, some tips for people starting off in the profession, but I would always like your feedback, and please let me know what you're into. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks very much for watching.